This conference will now be recorded.
Good afternoon and welcome to the GRN Webinar, Employer Insights Report, the first one of 2021. Thank you all for coming along today and sharing your precious time. I'm going to give an introduction just quickly to some of our new members, a little bit of background about who I am and what the Graduate Recruiters Network is all about. So first of all, my name's Dan Hawes. I'm the co-founder of GRB, which is the Graduate Recruitment Bureau. We're the go-to platform for high caliber university students, graduates and recruiters. Established back in 1997 by two graduates, we have about 40 staff. Normally they'd be all in our office today in Brighton. I'm the only one, making sure all the computers are working and that they can work remotely. We have been helping many clients in that time, approximately 1,800 recruiters from all sectors, companies such as Post Office, IBM, Unilever, to name but a few, and Ocado, but also several fast-growing SMEs that need us to supply graduate talent. Our recruitment experts have successfully matched over 8,000 graduates with full-time graduate level jobs, and we're hoping for a better year than 2020. Now, I'm going to quickly move on to give you a brief overview of GRN, or Graduate Recruiters Network. For those that are new, welcome. If this is your first webinar as well, we're delighted to have you along today. This was actually set up by GRB back in January 2009, initially for our clients, but also our friends. So we work with a lot of other stakeholders, university career staff, researchers and other organisations and individuals that are involved with graduate recruitment. Now, the aim is to bring together HR advisors, HR business partners, recruitment directors and talent leads to discuss current topics with a mix of relevant and influential speakers. The emphasis is on the members to share best practice in a confidential environment, enhance your learning, and ultimately help you become even better graduate recruiters. Membership currently stands at 2,904. We've seen an increase in the last 4 months by 525 new members. And predominantly FTSE 100 or fast-growing SME recruiters across all sectors in the UK. So a real mixture of individuals and organisations, which is one of the unique factors of the GRN. Now, as a member, the bonuses are that you receive invites to these webinars, other special events, access to the LinkedIn forum. We run surveys, and also we send out a quarterly newsletter. So that's your free membership there. We also have extra benefits if you are a VIP member. We've got a few joining us today, which I'm delighted to see, from only £299 per year. If we're in a real environment, they would be sitting at the front in reserved seating, but for the time being, we're welcoming every member along for our webinar today. So just to give you another idea as to kind of the mix of the level of seniority within our members, I did a word cloud. Looks a bit old-fashioned, but I still think it quite accurately displays some of the predominant job titles within the GRN. So early talent manager is loud and clear there, but also a real mixture of engagement, learning and development, diversity and inclusion, and campus and other advisors within graduate recruitment. So really nice mixed membership base there. So today we have around 125 of you booked in to listen to our speaker today. Today's presenter is a chap called Alek Berka. Now, he's the market research manager at QS, a very large research firm, and he oversees the analysis and design of a range of research projects which they conduct throughout the year. This includes, among many others, their International Student Survey, which I'm sure you're very, very familiar with. This is actually the largest survey of pre-enrolled international students globally. So that's a really, really useful piece of research if you're not aware of that, to tap into it. I'm sure Alex will be able to help you find that. He has over 10 years experience working in market research, and he's certainly well versed in drawing actionable insights from his surveys and experience working across a variety of sectors. So we're going to have Alex talking about his Employer Insights report in a second. And this is a survey among around 13,000 employers throughout last year, and hopefully we'll share some interesting learnings from how they dealt with last year as it unfolded. After that, we'll have Q&A. There'll be the opportunity for you to ask Alex questions. Please use the chat box for any of your questions and comments, and I'll put those to Alex when his presentation has finished. There'll be then some other business before we close, approximately at 1:30 p.m. Now, this is recorded, and I know for some of you may have to duck out for meetings or maybe have to
put the heating on, please.
School some of your children. So this will be available on demand. You'll all get an alert when that's uploaded to the YouTube channel. Right, so I am going to pass over to Alex now, make him the presenter.
Thanks very much, Dan. Hello everyone, hope you're all managing to stay well. I know it's not quite got off to the start that we wanted here in the UK, but hope that's not putting too much of a dampener on things. Thanks for the introduction. Just to reiterate, yeah, my name is Alex. I've been a market research manager here at QS for a little over 3 years now, and my main responsibility is to manage the various surveys that QS runs, which includes the employer survey, which we'll get onto, but it also encompasses a much broader range of audiences. So he already mentioned I'm responsible for the international student survey, so we look at students. We'll also talk to academics and various professionals working within higher education to get a very comprehensive view of the sector. So I'll take you through some of the results from the employer survey, and we'll focus specifically on, what are their priorities when it comes to graduate recruitment. We'll look at the skills that they want to see from their graduate hires, and how satisfied they are with regards to those skills. And I'll finish off by looking at graduate business schools and how employers of business school graduates differ to the norm in terms of their priorities and responsibilities. But before we get on to all of that, I just want to tell you a little bit about QS, because I know some of you, may not be too familiar with the work that we do, and some of you may have heard of the rankings we produce, but actually we're a lot broader than just the rankings. So there are sort of 3 fundamental pillars which underpins our philosophy. The first of which is we want to help students to achieve everything that they can do and fulfill their potential by guiding them towards the most relevant and best suited education pathways available to them. And central to this is we believe that international students and in particular international mobility are fundamental to this. So we believe that by helping those students who want to study overseas, that there really are shared benefits to all of them, not just for those students, but for the universities and for domestic students as well. We believe that it's beneficial for all. And finally, we just want to reiterate that we believe that by helping students and by guiding them and pointing them in the direction of the courses that are best suited for them, we're able to help them prepare for the world of work and ultimately have more fulfilling and successful careers. And we recognize that for many that process starts at university. So in terms of how we do this, well, there's a couple of different channels and avenues that we go down. Firstly, we host a number of student recruitment events, which help prospective students and universities from all over the world to connect and to ask questions of one another. Obviously, prior to the outbreak of COVID-19, these events were all face-to-face, but we've since pivoted these so that they're all taking place in an online setting.
Okay, no, it's not.
We'll also host a number of B2B events, which are aimed at helping professionals working in the higher education sector to stay ahead of the curve by providing top quality thought leadership and examples of best practice to highlight the benefits of the sector. Our website domains in the form of topuniversities.com and topmba.com help to give information to prospective students on different countries, different universities, different courses, any kind of information that they might want to have access to. And I guess central to this is the rankings that we produce, which I'm sure many of you will be familiar with, and that really helps us to give a distilled measure of the quality of any given institution. And finally, we'll help a range of universities with their international student recruitment. So we'll directly help them when it comes to converting those inquirers and potential international students that they get, and converting them along that pathway to the point where they're actually ready to enroll at an institution. So that, in a nutshell, is QS and the work that we do. As far as today is concerned, I just want to give you a little bit more information about the intelligence unit, which is the division that I work for, and the audiences that we speak to. So we've already mentioned the International Student Survey, which last year spoke to over 78,000 prospective international students. We do a survey amongst academics, and that data will feed into the rankings that we produce. We ask them, what are the best universities as far as they're concerned. We'll work directly with over 2,000 universities and business schools in one form or another, whether that's with student recruitment events or international student recruitment, or consulting on their ranking status and how they can improve their rankings. And lastly, what we'll focus on today is our employer survey, which, as Dan said, last year gathered over 13,000 responses from employers all over the world. Not only do those responses feed into the rankings that we'll produce, but we also get their views on universities and how they can tailor and adapt their strategies to ensure that students are able to enter the workforce being as well prepared as possible and with the skills that they need. So just a little bit more background on the employer survey, and then we'll get on to the results. So it has been running in its current form for a little over 30 years now, during which time we've got a huge wealth of trended data with regards to employers' perceptions of universities and graduates as well. It has grown. So last year we received over 13,000 responses from 100 different countries, which is a fantastic database to have. We can cut the data in all kinds of ways to ensure that we're looking at the most relevant audience. The sample itself is comprised of hiring managers within companies, or at least those with a say in the recruitment process of that company. It runs every year. Field work normally lasts from February to March in each year, which means that currently we're busy preparing the 2021 iteration of the survey, so that will launch shortly. And obviously within that, we'll ask employers to nominate those universities which they feel produce the best graduates. And we'll then take that data and we'll combine it with a number of other sources to produce our rankings. Separate to that, though, we'll also produce a series of reports around the survey from more of a thought leadership perspective. And you can download all of those reports from the website there. And it's not just the employer survey. You can download the reports from the International Student Survey and all of our blogs and white papers that we produce. So if you're interested, I would urge you to go to that URL there. So just to give you a brief outline of the presentation, I've already been through sort of overview of QS and the employer survey. What I'll then move on to is employer decision making in a very broad nutshell. It will just be some headline stats to give you an idea of how we see employers as making decisions on recruiting graduates, and show those aspects of the process which which they think are most important for universities to help students with. I'll then go on to look at what we term the skills gap, which very much focuses on which skills employers think are most important for graduates to have, and we'll compare that to how satisfied they are with the performance of recent hires on those skills to identify where there's a mismatch. And lastly, we'll finish by doing a bit of a deep dive on graduate business schools and how employers who recruit these graduates differ slightly to the norm, because that's very much a specialist area which QS is very knowledgeable on. Firstly, then we'll look at employer decision making, and again, this is just to give you a kind of flavour of some of the questions we ask within the survey and how employers worldwide feel about recruiting recent graduates. We'll focus on their priorities and what they're looking for before moving on to how they think universities can help their students prepare for the recruitment process whilst they're still students. And obviously, employers have a range of factors which they'll look at when hiring graduates, and within the survey we'll ask them what their most important priorities are. These are the top 6. So you can see there in the top right, the most important priority, if you like, is previous professional experience, which is the most important priority for employers globally. And I think the emphasis that employers really place on this aspect demonstrates the value that they see in terms of exposure to real workplaces, and highlights, I think, the need for higher education institutions and universities to really facilitate and empower graduates in gaining this type of experience, whether that's through internships or work placements or any other sort of avenue. I think it really highlights the need for universities to do better in terms of preparing students by giving them exposure to workplaces in more general terms. And I think it's also important to highlight that obviously these opportunities must be provided in areas which are of the right disciplines for the students. So you think target disciplines, that is a very important priority as well. I think it further highlights that universities need to guide students and give them as much advice as possible to ensure that they're choosing the right degree for their chosen career path. Diversity is another important priority for a number of employers, and it's becoming more of an important priority as well. So many of them now actively think about diversity as part of their hiring process for graduates. They're really starting to see the value, I think, and the benefits of having a diverse workforce which can bring a range of opinions to discussions and problem solving within the workplace. And that's becoming more and more of a priority over time. The other aspect is that they've graduated from highly ranked universities, which I think reiterates the need for global rankings of universities, as they can really help in decision making for employers. And lastly, there's a few other things there. International experience, extracurricular activities are a priority for some employers, not so many though. But again, I think it reiterates the need for universities to provide students with opportunities, not just workplace opportunities, but also opportunities to study abroad temporarily or for a semester or a term, and also give them opportunities outside the academic side of things to ensure they're producing, well-rounded graduates who are comfortable, if you like, at home in the modern workplace. But as far as this data is concerned, I think it's really all about the previous professional experience, and I think universities really need to work to adapt and tailor their course curriculums to ensure that they're giving students the opportunities for that before they come to applying for jobs, and that's really the overwhelming stat to take away from this. Another question we ask employers is what services do they think are most important for universities to provide their students when it comes to preparing them for that application and job hiring process. And what we've done here is we've also built in some data from our international student survey, because we also asked students, what services would you most want to see from a university to help you when applying for jobs? And you'll see there's some interesting differences which we'll come on to, but as far as employers are concerned, the most important thing they want is for universities to have a service to review CVs or personal statements, That's nearly 2/3 of them think that's the most important aspect. And the fact that it's such a popular option, I think probably indicates there's a certain level of dissatisfaction, if you like, amongst employers about the quality of graduate CVs that they receive. And I think there's clearly a need for universities to take a closer look at how they can provide better training and support around CV writing and reviewing as part of their career services, because they need to teach students how to write an effective CV and how that CV answers particular job skills gaps and how that can help employers. So at the minute there's very much a difference there. Another service which is of relative importance is mock interviews. So again, it's important for universities to be able to provide students with this service, just so that they are more practiced in communicating how they can help an employer and how they are right for the job that's being advertised. But I think when you look further down the chart, what's really interesting is that students see certain aspects as being much more important to them than employers do. So one-to-one meetings with careers advisors, career-related talks, and you can see those require a much wider range of services. And I think that's probably because students need a little bit more guidance on their career path in more generalized terms. If you think about it, these services are much more useful to students at the start of that process for finding a job or thinking about what career they would like to have. So I think it's definitely more of a start of the funnel rather than the very end of the funnel. But nevertheless, I think it is worth employers being aware of that, because that's very much the mindset of a lot of students, which is they're starting at this from a much more broader perspective than many might expect. So now I'm just going to move on to what we call the global skills gap. This is very much something which we published a series of separate reports on, going back over a number of years, and it's really with the aim of providing universities and employers and students as well with a sort of greater understanding of the gaps between graduate skills and employer expectations at a very sort of top line level, because basically we want to be able to show to universities the areas where they can improve and reflect on the responsibilities they hold to prepare graduates for that world of work, but also to try and identify where their responsibility ends and where employer training begins. But before we go on to look at the results, I just wanted to think it's worth taking a step back and just examining what we mean by the term a skill, because when you go on the internet, there are various definitions. Broadly, they all point towards a similar notion, which is that a skill is something which encompasses the knowledge, competencies, and abilities to perform an operational task, or in other words, a learned ability to perform a task effectively. In terms of how we acquire these skills, again, most of these definitions point towards the value of education, and higher education in particular. It's all about learning these skills through life and through work experiences, yes, but also through study. So when we think about skills, it's clear that universities have a very important role to play and a responsibility towards their students to guarantee that they'll help them acquire the most relevant and best skills. It very much forms a sort of informal contract, if you like. It's very much a trade-off between universities guiding their students and signaling to them the most appropriate and most valuable skills that they can acquire, but also teaching them how to develop and enhance these and communicate these when it comes to applying for jobs. So with that in mind, I just thought I'd quickly show you the types of skills that we present to employers and students within the context of our surveys. You can see here that there's 15 skills we present, and these encompass a range of different things. So I guess it includes some of the more hard skills, if you like, in terms of analytical skills, technical skills, but it also encompasses a range of sort of softer skills as well. So communication, organization, negotiation, some of these skills which are a little bit harder to define and to distinguish, but it's important to have that breadth and that range. And when it comes to the surveys, we'll ask employers a couple of different questions. Firstly, we'll ask them which skills are most important when hiring graduates, and then we'll ask them how satisfied are they with the performance of recent graduate hires on those particular skills. And that arguably is quite a crude method of asking these questions, but what it does mean is that we can easily identify those areas where there's the biggest gaps in terms of importance compared to satisfaction. So this is the order of importance, the different skills as far as employers are concerned. So you can see there the top three most important skills are communication, problem solving, and teamwork. Although in reality there's a very long tail there of skills which are deemed to be important. So I think it reiterates that universities need to be producing graduates who are very well rounded with a very full range of hard and soft skills. But I think you can see the dominance of softer skills there at the upper end of the scale as they're of the most importance. And it suggests that the role of universities is, yes, to provide them with these hard skills that can be utilized in a workplace, but also to ensure that those softer skills, which are sometimes a little bit less defined, as they're also essential to being successful in a working environment. And what we'll do now is we'll build on satisfaction with these skills amongst recent graduate hires, and you can see that generally speaking there's a bit of a gap. Broadly speaking, they aren't as satisfied with the skills of graduates as they would like to be, or as they are important. And we'll move on to look at where are the biggest gaps, but for now I think it's just worth highlighting that there is a gap in very general terms. And actually the thing that they're most satisfied with is teamwork. So whilst that's seen as an important facet, it's also something that graduates seem to be very effective at, which I think is a good barometer of course design and curriculum designs as well. So when you look at the actual skills gaps, the biggest gaps between importance and satisfaction, you can see that they're predominantly soft skills. It's largely problem solving, resilience, and communication. And actually, these have been some of the biggest gaps over the course of the last 3 years that we've been asking these questions and doing this analysis as part of our survey. And we think that the consistency of these results is probably related to the relationship between those three of problem solving, resilience, and communication, because problem solving is only possible once you've identified and conceptualized that problem, and the process for identifying that is vital when it comes to your communication skills and being able to communicate that problem to others. And resilience, I think, is something that only really can grow after individuals have had a chance to overcome these problems. It's very much an ongoing process which takes them time, and it's not necessarily something which graduates fresh out of university are going to have. Oh, and just one thing, I think it's important to mention that flexibility there is the fifth biggest skills gap. We're going to very much keep an eye on flexibility because we think that's something that's going to become more important over time, especially given everything that's happened over the course of the last 12 months. And we think that's going to be something that becomes more important as time goes by, and students need to be able to work flexibly in the modern workplace. Again, we can draw on data from our international student survey just to see how students feel about this, because we asked them, what skills would you most want to acquire at university that you think employers value the most? And we just want to showcase that there is very much a mismatch between student expectations and employer expectations around which skills are valued the most. And we think it's very important to bridge this gap and to educate both students and institutions on which skills they should be cultivating in their students. So you can see there students at the minute are very much underestimating data skills and flexibility as well. And given the last 12 months, I think it's going to be very important for graduates to be able to work flexibly. So universities can play their part by introducing them to remote learning and remote teaching as well. And that's very much where that process starts, but it's going to be very important for that to continue. And students overestimate, unsurprisingly, I think, the value of leadership, which is possibly unsurprising given that employers don't need recent graduates to be leaders. They need them to focus on learning how to solve problems and work as part of a team. So whilst I think it's great that the graduates have a lot of aspiration in terms of their leadership skills, it's possibly not something that's as valued to employers. In terms of how we want to be able to use these insights, we think that there is a bit of a lack of knowledge and communication between students and employers, and that's what's driving these gaps. I think the responsibility to address this falls on all different groups, if you like. It falls on students and on employers, but also on universities as well. Universities, I think, need to do a lot more to communicate to students what skills they should be developing and what will make them most valuable to potential employers. I think this in turn means that universities need to redesign a lot of their courses and adapt them so that they can better fulfill those needs of the labour market, but they also have a responsibility to guide the students in their decision making so that they're studying the right course for them and know that the course they're studying will put them on the right career path that they've chosen. And I think that will take time, but you'll start to see that when students and graduates become job seekers, that they have a much better understanding of what the job market landscape looks like, what issues in particular employers will be struggling with, and how their own skills can help address these, and they'll be able to articulate those elements more effectively. So I'd just like to finish very quickly by looking at graduate business schools, because this is an area of particular interest for QS, and it is, I think, something that we very much specialize in. We publish our own ranking of business schools in particular, and we'll evaluate them in their own right, separate to the global rankings of universities that we produce. But just to give you a bit of background on them and sort of the general measures that we collect, we think they're becoming more and more important as more and more institutions are offering tailored and specialized courses, which we think are giving employers access to a much broader pool of business school talent. And from our survey, we found that roughly 20% of employers worldwide will specifically recruit business school talent, although there are some significant geographical and industry variations. So that figure is a lot higher in North America and Western Europe, and it's also a lot higher for certain industries. So those industries around professional services, consulting, and the finance industry as well, which I don't think is particularly surprising to anyone, but it's worth highlighting as well. And in terms of what programs are most popular for employers in business schools, the MBA is, I think, unsurprisingly, the most in-demand course amongst employers, but that's also supplemented by executive MBAs and online MBAs. So broadly speaking, most of those employers who do recruit business school graduates will look at one form of MBA or another and will value that. It is also worth highlighting, though, that Masters in Management and International Management, that's a very popular option, but also a Masters in Business Analytics, which is increasingly popular amongst employers. So there's clearly that's clearly fulfilling a need for employers worldwide, particularly when you think about the growth of various data sources and big data in terms of helping businesses. But so when we look at MBA programs, we've just split that data out by different regions worldwide here. And we've largely done that just to highlight that there's a huge focus on North American institutions. They're much more likely to recruit MBA graduates from in a variety of ways, whether that's a full-time MBA, online MBA, or or executive MBAs. And additionally, the Middle East is becoming an increasingly focal point for MBA graduates and employers looking for those specific students, particularly with executive MBAs. That's a highly popular option, is increasing all the time as well. And lastly, we asked employers which specializations are most important to them, because depending on which industry they work in, that can have a dramatic impact on these results and which specializations are most important. But globally speaking, leadership, strategy, and innovation are the most prominent specializations that they want these graduates to have. Again, I think that's relatively unsurprising, given that they'll have to pay lofty premiums often to recruit these kinds of students, and they'll want them to contribute to these particular aspects, and particular strategy there. I think is very important to consider, because strategic thinking, I think, is something that businesses often value very highly amongst, or something that employers and businesses value a lot, and something they'll be looking for in their business school graduates. But I think at the minute it's something that there's kind of a gap in terms of business school graduates providing that service and having that skill and that specialization, and it's not currently being fulfilled. So for business schools, there are clear areas where they can tailor their curriculum to address those needs of the labour markets, and I think it's very much around strategy and innovation, where universities in particular need to lead the way on their business schools and their business school students as well. So that, in a nutshell, is some of the insights from the employer survey. I would very much encourage you to go to qs.com and look at industry reports and download all of the reports that we've published over the last couple of years. There's a lot of detail there. It will look at the skills gap breakdown by different countries, by different industries as well. So you can see there's a huge amount of detail that obviously I can't cover in half an hour, but hopefully will be interesting to you.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Alex. I know you've only had half an hour to give an overview of your report, and you've given us some sort of tantalizing bits of data there, and it's going to be useful to access that full report, which will be available to all our members via the LinkedIn forum. I've got a few questions from members, if that's okay, Alex.
Certainly, yes.
Cool. The first one is 13,000 employers. Do you have any breakdown of the type of employers, the sectors, the people you interviewed, that kind of thing?
Yes, there should be a breakdown in the report, but we aim for the sample to be as globally representative as possible.
Yeah.
So I can provide, if they need specific breakdowns in terms of numbers, I'm happy to provide that after the call. I just don't have them to hand just yet. But yes, I can give a breakdown of industry, yes, that and geographical representation as well. Yeah. Lovely,
thank you. Well, at the end, we'll get active on the LinkedIn group. So if you can answer any questions,
sure,
for members on the LinkedIn forum later on today or tomorrow, that'd be wonderful. The second one was, if you could go to your slide to show this, I think it was how universities are preparing students for employment. Is one of the early ones.
This one?
Yes. So we've had quite a few members talking about this, kind of surprised at the variance in the value of sort of one-to-one meetings with career advisors and career-related talks, actually, between employers and students. You know, it's obviously a golden opportunity for employers to engage with students, and so it's quite an interesting sort of disparity there.
Well, I think it comes down to, for many employers, all they really want, I think, is to is that when they get the application in front of them from a student, that they know that it's of a good quality, and that when they interview that particular student, they're well versed in knowing what their skills are and how they can meet the job requirements. I think with those one-to-one meetings and career-related talks, they're very much services that a university needs to provide for students. And as I said, I think they're quite often, well, I'm basing this very much on my own experiences, but I think they're very much broader aspects. So it's more about thinking about what kind of career would you like, and what career is best for you before they're even thinking about applying for jobs and particular companies. I think it's more broadly, what career do you want to have? So I think it's more top of the funnel. So yes, universities can get involved at that stage. Employers can get involved at that stage.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to recognise that for those particular students, that's very much top of the funnel. They're very much at the starting to think about what job they would like and what career they would like.
Yeah. Whereas the CV is very much the end product of a long process. Yeah. Okay. Good. And also, there's another slide about the top skills employers really value. We talked about professional experience being number one.
The first one, yes.
Yeah, that was it. Thank you. Yes, so two things. First of all, has that changed in, say, the last 5 years, that order of preferences? And secondly, the emphasis on professional experience, graduates being able to hit the ground running, so to speak. Are we going to see an uptick in applications for degree apprenticeships, which offer almost the perfect mix that employers are looking for?
Yeah, I mean, so in terms of the first question, the only thing that's really shifted is diversity,
Right.
and that's becoming more of an important factor. And I think it's increasingly recognised by many employers as being truly valuable and bringing tangible benefits to their company. So that's something that's increasing all the time. As far as professional experience goes, potentially yes. I know here in the UK that's very much something that's receiving a lot of attention right now in the form of degree apprenticeships and giving that that right combination of workplace experience, but also continuing with the academic side of things. So potentially yes. I think it is being driven very much by some of our sample who will very much focus on business school graduates, who they like them to have between 3 and 5 years of professional experience behind them before they've even started that course. So I think you've got to think about that as being a very globally representative view of employers, some of whom will only be focusing on business school graduates. And I appreciate they're very much a different kind of that's a different kind of process than it is for those who are specifically focused on undergraduate recruitment.
Yeah, it depends on the course, like you say. Business is very much ingrained, having sandwich placements or internships, whereas other more theoretical courses, it's maybe less so, or it's optional, or it's really down to the student. From our experience, it's very much the case that students see their career starting the minute they set foot on campus. So they're building their skill set, making sure they're as employable as possible, and universities are making it clear that professional experience is very, very important in whatever shape or form. And it's interesting, I mean, we could almost call it commercial awareness as well. And that brings me to the final point, that one of your slides there showing the lag. That one. Yeah. That's interesting. At the bottom, you've got commercial awareness being of relative low importance, I guess, but actually exceeding on the satisfaction scale. That caught my attention, that particular.
Yes, I mean, just returning to what you were saying about students being very career oriented the second they put their foot in the door. That's something that we very much see in our international student survey when we ask them to think about what's important to them when choosing a course. Often career considerations come up as one of the most important, if not the most important thing for them. So for many, it's even before they even set foot in the door. It's when they're in that application stage, before they've even arrived at university, that they're thinking about their careers. Now, as far as the commercial awareness goes, it did catch my eye as well when I was looking at these results. I think for many, it's they're interpreting commercial awareness as a sort of very much sort of sales oriented aspect of that. So for many, that won't be relevant for the role that they're going into. All they'll really be looking for is for them to be able to work as part of a team in more strategic terms, rather than specifically looking at that sales element. I think that's how that's being interpreted by employers in the context of the survey.
So the difference being they kind of understand how a company makes profit and the inner workings of an office and the culture and things like that kind of awareness, rather than professional experience, is a much broader term, I guess. Yeah. Now we've had a few more comments here, and they're kind of alluding to getting more detail. So if you can share that a bit later on, that'll be wonderful for our members, just to drill down to certain things that are going to be most relevant to them. Now, I just want to find out, I think I've covered, there's a few more questions coming through, but we're going to be running out of time shortly. I'm interested to know from you, Alex, what was the most surprising thing from this report for you this time round?
The most surprising thing, I think, was when we look at that first question, you look at previous professional experience. And I will admit, this is the first time I've worked on the employer survey side of things this year. But just to see, because I didn't show the actual percentage scores, but that is considerably or significantly higher than the second most important aspect, which was experience in target disciplines. It's very much the most important, and for some, the only thing that they will consider as previous professional experience. So I think it really highlights the need for universities to take a fundamental look at their course and curriculum designs, because it's just not an option for too many students at the minute. And I think that's where there's the biggest dissonance, if you like, between the three different groups or participating groups here. When you think about university students and employers. So for me, that was the thing which was most stark, if you like, and I think that's what needs to be the biggest change.
Great. Alex, thank you very much for that. We appreciate you sharing those findings, giving us some information to help our members today. As I said, we're going to be putting this onto our LinkedIn forum, so members can access the speaker today and ask any questions that you may not have had the opportunity to do so. We also have recorded this, as I've said many times before, just so our members can access this on demand, or if they've had to duck out for various reasons, or for those people who were unable to attend today, welcome to you, and this is going to be updated very, very shortly. Finally, just other business, our next webinar will be on Wednesday the 10th of February. This time we'll be having our presenter presenting the view from campus, lessons from 2020. This will be with Lynn Hamilton-Gow from Institute of Chartered Accountants, England and Wales. She'll be sharing her findings from activities on campus, remotely for the most part, I imagine, from students, graduates and employers. So some really interesting lessons there as we move into the next recruiting season. Finally, some of you may already be aware of this website called Graduatementaluk. This is a platform we launched back in August, designed exclusively for graduates who are looking for one-to-one career mentoring. We have over 100 mentors on there from a range of backgrounds, some very inspiring senior business people who've kindly volunteered to provide mentoring sessions using video platforms, obviously, for graduates who need it. So very keen to get this word out there. If you can share and promote this as part of our campaign, hashtag help the COVID generation, that would be wonderful. Okay, thank you again to Alex for giving us your time and sharing your insights, and again for getting involved on the LinkedIn forum a bit later on today and maybe tomorrow. We appreciate all our members for coming along today, sharing your precious time. Have a great week and see you next time. Thank you.